Hi everybody. In this video I am going to walk you through the steps of how you can get SonicPy and p5js communicating with each other through using a OSC library called p5js-OSC, which was developed by Gene Kogan. So on the in-thread forum a while back, someone had posted asking about working with SonicPy and p5js, which are pretty much my two favorite creative coding environments. And I have had some experience and success working with p5 and SonicPy, going back and forth through sending OSC messages. So I put this post on there to kind of help walk people through the steps, and have been meaning to make a tutorial as well on how to do that, so that is what I'm doing here. I will post the link to this specific post that I did in the in-thread SonicPy forum, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through what needs to be done. So the library itself that is used is this p5js-OSC. This is a GitHub, and it does kind of walk you through the basics here, which are included in my post on in-thread as well. But before you do that, the first thing you need to do is make sure you have Node downloaded. So you go to nodejs.org and just download whichever version is going to work best for you. I already have Node downloaded on my computer, so I'm not going to be doing that. Now the next thing you're going to do, and this is following the directions on the GitHub repo, is you're going to open a terminal and you are going to clone this specific repo here. So I'm just going to copy and paste that, and then I'm going to bring up a terminal, and I'm just going to clone this directory. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, before I do that, I'm going to change the directory and make sure I do this in the right place. So I'm going to my documents, and then I can do it in here. Yes, that's fine. So I'll go, and then I'm going to cd into the p5. Okay, so now I'm inside of this directory here, the p5js -OSC. So let's go back here. We changed it, so now we're going to install it. So npm install. And so now we are in. It should be installed in here. So now first going back here, so once it's installed, first thing we're going to do is I'm actually going to open a new terminal window, and I am going to run a Python simple HTTP server, because I'm going to be doing this locally on my machine. I have not done this with the web editor for p5js, which if you've seen some of my p5 tutorials, that's usually what I'm using, but in this case it's all going to be running locally on the machine, so I need to make a simple server. So to do that, I'm going to type python 3-m and then http server, and then 8000 for the local host. And so now have that server up and running, and then in a different box, I keep in mind I'm here inside of this p5js OSC directory that I made when I installed it, and then for that I'm going to do node bridge.js, which is what we need to do to get this up and running. So I run that, and that should mean that everything is good to go. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be using One of the built-in examples that are here in this, and I believe it is the basic. So just so we can kind of see what the basic file will look like in p5js. So of course we have our setup and our draw. There's this setup here, and then these are kind of the two main, or three main, I guess, functions. One which sets up the OSC, and then this function is for sending OSC messages, and this is for receiving OSC messages here. But I'm going to bring up this file in here in Visual Studio. So we'll go to open, and then in my documents here, here's the directory p5js OSC, and again I'm going to go to this basic sketch and open it up here. Yes, I do. That's fine. All right, so here is the basic thing here. All right, so I'm gonna make some changes, and really what I think I'm just gonna do is take the example code that I gave here, kind of talk through it. So these are just some changes that I've made in this this basic file that we see here. Okay, so let's just copy and paste all this into this new basic one here. Okay, so a lot of this is the same. There are a few things that I am changing here. Okay, so first, in the setup OSC, the important part is we need to change this number here. Actually, let me go back. I'm sorry if I'm kind of all over the place. So we're going to change, if you're changing this, the basic one that we started with. Okay, the first and most important thing is we need to change this number here in the setup OSC function to the number inside of Sonic Pi. Okay, and I'm going to bring up Sonic Pi here because we will eventually need to be using it. But in Sonic Pi, if we go to preferences, which is press the little Pi button icon here, this is the OSC port number that Sonic Pi is on, 4560. So it is important that we make sure that is in our code here. Okay, it's 4560. All right. So that means when we send out an OSC message, that is where it's going to go. Okay. From there, we have this receiving, and we have this sending one. So I'm just going to refer back, as it's been a little while since I looked at this. So again, we go through here, I'm going to create an ellipse. I'm going to change its size, and I'm going to change its alpha in here. So I'm going to go back in here and copy this, and just get rid of all this, repost this. So you saw me do that in the basic. So now I've done that. I have two variables which are going to be used for this drawing here. So the fill for the alpha, and then the ellipse size. Okay, now this receiving function that I have here is the one that's going to be getting, receiving stuff from Sonic Pi. Okay, and so what you basically need to do with this receive function is whenever you send an OSC message, it has to be given some kind of name. And so the statement we are going to give is, we're going to give an OSC a message of cutoff, and that is going to assign its value to the alpha variable. So if the address, and that's what we get from this receive OSC function, the address is equal to cutoff, then the ellipse alpha is going to be take the value. And when we send a value, it gets kind of interpreted as an array, and so that's why we need to put this index here of 0. So value and then the first value of that. We can send multiple values through SonicPy in an OSC message, but that's not something I'm going to do. And then I'm going to create another OSC message called amp, and when I send a message through SonicPy that uses amp, it's going to use the ellipse size, and it's going to change the size of the ellipse there. Okay, so going back to the post in thread, so this is the code that I'm going to put into SonicPy. Okay, so I'm going to copy that here, and I got to find my SonicPy. I'm going to go to a different buffer, get rid of this, and then just paste this in. So SonicPy, we need use OSC, and just so you know, you can go into here, into sending OSC messages in the documentation here. There's also about receiving, so we can send stuff from P5, but I'll probably do that in another video. Okay, so we have use OSC, and then we have the local host, and then we need a value that is going to match the port in the setup function in OSC, which in this case is 3333. All right, and so whenever we send an OSC message, we need to give it a name. And after we give it a name, that's the first argument that we provide for sending an OSC message. So we give it a name, and then we give a value that we want to send. Okay, so again, I said the cutoff. If we look here, when I send an OSC message called cutoff, it's going to send a random value between 1 and 100, and the cutoff, when we receive that message over here in p5js, it's going to put that value into the ellipse alpha function, or the variable, and then that's going to be interpreted here. Okay, so we're going to see that alpha change between 1 and 100. Then we have another OSC message called amp, and that is going to be carrying with it a random value between 1 and 200. And then that, if we receive that message called amp, it is going to pass that value between 1 and 200 into the ellipse size variable here, and then that is going to be passed into the ellipse, so we're going to see the ellipse change size. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to hope this works, quite frankly. So I'm going to get that going, and then I'm also need to open up a local host here. So we're going to kind of get a local host 8000. Try and get this port run. Yes, this is what I meant to do. There we go. So here I am inside of my directories on my laptop. So I'm going to go to documents. There's my P5 OSC. We are in the basic, and there you see the sketch. There's that ellipse in my code, and currently the background is blue, which we can see there. So now if I run this sketch here, I have a sleep of 1, so every time it sleeps and then it updates in this live loop at SonicPy, it should update this value, which gets sent into there, and we should see some changes in this circle. So run it. There you see. Yes, the circle is changing size as it goes. So, and I could change this value to maybe 255. So we see now it's changing much quicker. I could maybe change this number here. So now this is happening in real time. It's updating. So this is where things get interesting in that I can be controlling values in P5 in real time as I live code here in SonicPy. So we see now, it's not going as much. I could maybe make this between 100 and 255. So now we're getting more of those colors there. Now the one downside of this is that I need to, updating the code in here is something I would need to do ahead of time. So that I can't live code the P5 code in here in real time. I would need to kind of stop what I was doing and save and update it, and then just sort of refresh the browser here. But once I have all those specifications in the P5 code, I could then kind of work with it however I want in SonicPy. So just to give an example there, I could make maybe a new value. I'll just call it ellipse color, and I'll make that equal to, I don't know, we'll just start at like 0 for now. And then it's pretty much just going to make another if statement here. So if an address, and I could just maybe call it color, and then ellipse color, that, and then the fill, let's say, can kind of change it to ellipse color here. So this is going to be going back and forth between like a yellow and a green, I guess, if I'm changing this color here. So I'm going to save that. I am then going to make another OSC message, and I'm going to give it a name of color, and then I will, this one I'll just kind of hard code the number, I guess. So I'll start with 0, and then I'll just kind of change it as we go. Okay, so make sure I save this code here. I then need to just refresh my code here, and then I'm going to run this code. Okay, so notice it's staying green. If I change this to 255, now it's yellow. Change it to like 120. Get kind of this in-between color and go back to 0. Now it's green again. I could just kind of change this alpha if I want. Maybe I just want to make it 255, so it's just going to stay the same color, and then we can see me change this to yellow, and then maybe like more of a different green, and then a 0, and make it full green again. And that's basically it. And here I'm just using SonicPy to control the visuals. I very easily could also put in, I'm just very quickly going to do maybe like a scale. I'll just do like a C major scale here, choose, so I can. And really the sound only corresponded with when everything changed. Other than that, there wasn't a whole lot. But like these names cut off and amp, I'm fairly certain are from the example that I gave before here. So I think it's, this example is code of which the parameters and stuff would actually correspond more to the musical elements of what was going on in Sonic Pi. So I could make the visuals connect more to some kind of musical output as well. So there seems to be more correspondence between what you're hearing in Sonic Pi and what you're seeing in p5js. But this is really just to show you how to get up and running, and then there's tons of things that you could do as a result of this. But hopefully you are able to get this running as well. Again, just so you know, this is on a Mac that I am using. See the specs that I have here. So I'm running Ventura 13.5, but I've had this run on different machines in the past as well. So it does work pretty well, just following those basic instructions there, and hopefully you can get it working. I will be looking to do another tutorial soon in the future of how we can use P5 to actually send OSC messages into Sonic Pi, and then we can change some of the parameters of things going on with the sound by messing around with things in p5js as well, and that will use the exact same library. So it's just a matter of changing the code as opposed to getting the servers up and running. So yeah, enjoy.